Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here. Welcome to Life's Podcast VIDEOCAST with SUJATA and Coach Les. And we are currently live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter. And we are here today to share with you and to discuss why is it that people who are following the Christian faith always put responsibility and accountability on God's shoulders. And it's not just Christian faith, it's other faiths as well. They all do this same thing. And so Sujata and I came together this week and she said, let's do this topic. It's always amazing to me. And I'm going to let her share in just a second. And I want to introduce her. Sujata has accumulated a wealth of experience during her life, leading to insights and knowledge that cannot be coached or taught in a class. She's a mother, a wife, a journalist, a consultant, an activist, a leader, and a businesswoman domestically and internationally. In sharing her story, Sujata strives to provide readers of all backgrounds in any part of the world with real-life examples on how to deal with the unpredictable nature of everyday life. And this is the book. If you are looking online, you'll be able to see a picture of the book. And I know she's going to put the web address on Clubhouse so that the people on Clubhouse can punch in and get the book or take a look at the book. And we came together about 6 months ago and said, let's do podcasts together and share about life from different viewpoints that may cause a little bit of strife in the discussion. And we both trust each other implicitly. And I bring people up on stage that I trust to, one, maintain what I call decorum. Their language stays at what I would say PG, maybe R-rated, because it is, 9:30 at night. And, then the only reason I do that and set those parameters is because there are some people in this world that stop listening when they hear some of those words. Those words trigger something and they are no longer listening. And I would prefer not to have that be the trigger. There are plenty of other triggers. So the opportunity in this podcast is to just really dive into some of the issues that a lot of people aren't willing to touch because so many people will get fired up and get almost antagonistic to the point where they have to be censored. And doing it the way that we're doing it on StreamYard, on the video, I get to make sure that if the comments need to be deleted, I can delete them. And doing it here on Clubhouse, if somebody gets out of line, I can just punch them out of the room or punch them out of the audience politely and remove them without having any fuss. And one of the things that you'll notice that I always do also in the rooms, if you're somebody that is going to be coming and visiting us on Clubhouse, is that I make everybody a moderator. Why? Because I don't want people to have the experience of somebody's better than somebody else. Yes, I happen to be the person talking because I'm in the upper left and I started the room. But at some point, I like shutting up and listening to other people share their stories, share their intention, and asking them and learning from them. I know very little. And the more I learn about the Bible and other religious works like the Bhagavad Gita, the Quran, the Torah, the more I believe that I don't understand. And that the big cosmic joke to me is probably going to be that when I die and go to quote unquote heaven or wherever it is that I go, I'm going to walk up to a gate and I'm going to be standing next to a Muslim and a Catholic and a Jew and a Hindu. And we're all going to go, hey, look, that's all the same God on the other side of the gate. And that's, to me, sounds like it's going to be the cosmic joke that I bump into. And along the journey, I believe Christ lived. I believe he was able to do what he did. And the more scientific stuff that we discover, the more I believe that the Holy Spirit is possible. Because when you start looking at the quantum realm and you start looking at the people out there that are able to heal with speech and touch, it has me be a believer that something about that 90 or 85, if you're somebody that can use 15% of your brain, the 85%, if we could use it, what could we do with it? And, you know, there's a movie out there, and some of you are going to chuckle when I say this, but there's a movie out there called Lucy. And in that movie, they talk about this gal who gets 100%, goes through the stages from 15% to 20 to 25 to 30 to 40 to 50 to 70 to 80 to 100% of her brain power. And, you know, those kind of movies don't just get made up by accident. And I don't believe that the devil had anything to do with making that movie. I have the sense that that movie comes out because as we grow as human beings on this planet, and as we release the grip on some of the things that hold us back, we may discover secrets and things about life and about what we're up to that will open doors and open avenues into the quantum realm, for instance. And maybe perhaps that's what the Holy Spirit is, where God works in there, timeless, future, past, and present are all the same. So a little crazy, little fun. It's Friday night. It's 9:41 Central Standard Time. It's 10 a.m. in Sujata's time. I'm going to hand the mic to her and let her play with the conversation for a moment. Sujata, the mic's all yours.
What I would like to say is, and some of the things that you said, it was the first that I heard, but what I'd like to tell the room is that this is about, no matter what you believe in the higher power or whichever is your faith, we are going to talk on the side of how human beings operate and whether they're accountable for their actions. Bottom line is that instead of putting everything on somebody else, whether it's another human being or it's whether it's the higher power, where do you stop doing that and take accountability for your actions, word, and thought? That is, I think, where I am coming from. And in this room, we are here to hear differing perspectives. So there is nothing which is, right or wrong. It's just what you think on this topic, and we would love to hear your shares.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So I'm going to pass the microphone over to Sister Jeanette, who has known me a long time now, right, Sister Jeanette?
It seems like a long time. And when you think about it, it really isn't that long ago. Time goes by so fast. All right, so we're answering the same question. We had great conversation. I love the layers that we had in the last few days. And, I think, people need to fess up with the decisions they make. They take the consequences because these are their choices. God is omnipotent, right? He's supernatural. So he's not tangible in our realm. He's just, you can't see him, you can't touch him. Maybe that makes it easier for them to blame him for everything. But it all comes down to their choice, their consequences. They live with it. And we need to remind them that that's something they made. It has nothing to do with God or you can't pray. God isn't a genie in the bottle, right? He doesn't necessarily just blink his eyes and things happen. So that's my take. That's my share for right now. I'm going to pass the mic back to you.
So, Sister Jeanette, before we pass the mic, Sujata said some of the stuff I shared today was the first time she'd heard some of that stuff. And I would love to just, I know that you've heard me share some of it, maybe all of it in different pieces all over the place. Would love to hear your take on, what makes this room, this stage, this opportunity such an open place for people to share all of their points of view. And how does that fit into what some people say is, quote unquote, following Christ? Are you authentic, or are you leading people on? So I'd just love to hear your take on that.
Well, one of the things you mentioned, like, yes, when you study faith, when you study all the faiths, and you look at the history of the faith, you kind of open your eyes. You open your eyes because a lot of what we're seeing now is pretty much man-made. It's been diluted through the many people that it's gone through. And we see that with other faiths, how they got started, where they got started, what they practice. So you can see things getting diluted. For true Christians, they have the saying, we're not here to be like Christians. We're to be here like Christ. And the difference is Christians have the tendency to put their own judgment into things, put their own ideas, what they think it is, and to be Christ-like is to take the reading and the study of what Christ did and how he led. He led by example. And he said, follow me. He didn't say, do the best you can, and put your own ideas into. He didn't say that. He said, if you look at, even with Christ, they became less God-centered. And so that they used their own laws. They became a law-centered versus God-centered. And so we see that. Okay, here's what happens when you don't stay Christ-like. You become law-centered. Your heart and soul is off the whole realm of what God is really about. So what you want to do is you want to open your mind. You want to be open. You want to be able to discuss these things. You want to ask questions from people that have different ideas and beliefs. You want to ask the whys. If you want to learn what people think, you want to ask the whys and just get them to share. You don't want to judge them. You don't want to stifle them. Let them talk, because you're going to learn a lot from them. You're going to learn either how to be or how not to be. So, in the direction that you take, Coach, is that, you talk to everybody, you open your heart to everybody, and you show them goodness in everything you do. Even our teaching is to be more Christ-like. And Christ went after the people. He went after the people that had visible issues in their life. He went to them. He didn't go away from them. That is one of the ways he led by example. So what you're talking about is just being open-minded. When you come in a room like this, talk about it. Open it up. Don't be judgmental. You don't want to talk about what you believe. You want to talk about what is the issue, and share your thoughts and invoke other people to think. When we put our judgment and our opinion on things, people kind of, okay, we can't have a discussion with you. But when you actually come in and you're sharing thoughts or ideas that come in your head as other people shout, what about? Ask the question, invoke the conversation, and you'll learn the true authenticity of people. You'll see the transparency of people when they can do that. I hope that helped, but I'll pass the mic to you and open it up for more discussion.
Thank you so much, Jeanette. Appreciate you sharing that, and would love to, hear from Nicholas from Sattva. Go ahead. Oh, got a phone call right at that moment. All right. Tiffany,
Yes.
would you like to share your thoughts about the topic for today? Why is it that people who are following the Christian faith always put responsibility and accountability on God's shoulders? And at what point do we take accountability of our own actions?
Okay. I'm going to respond to the time issue that was on, that you guys spoke about being irrelevant or whatever. In general, tell a child you can have that cookie in 1 hour after dinner. Tell the same kid school starts in 1 month. How fast do you think that 1 hour is going to go? It's going to feel like an eternity to a child until they get that cookie. But the 1 month is going to fly by. Is it time for school already? So that's my take on time. And then another situation that I don't exactly know how to frame this, but my stepdaughter is 9 years younger than I am, because my husband lost his second wife, and I'm his third wife. His first wife was the mom who did child abuse on her brother and her. Anyways, and if I triggered anybody, I'm so sorry. I didn't even think. Anyways, he's talking to his friend and talking about selective hearing. And so he's saying, Lynette, clean your room. She continues playing. Doesn't pay any attention. He whispers the word candy to his friend, and she pops up going, huh, where? But he was talking much quieter and wasn't even talking to her, where he was still talking to his friend to give the example about Lynette, clean your room, and talking in a normal voice. So that is I've experienced a lot, or witnessed a lot, about time and other things like that. Regarding blaming God, I don't necessarily blame him, but I do hold them responsible. I got no use from my elbow down to my fingers on my left hand. That's why you always hear me saying things like, Les, can I have some food that you cook? It's because my ability to stand, to hold something, even like a crock pot, I can't do it. Cut, I got no use for my left fingers. So with that, I can at least get a cutting board with 2 nails in it. But then trying to comprehend the directions of what I'm reading, and everything's different. So I can have the same thing all the time till I memorize it, and by then I'm sick of it. Or I just ask other people for me to help me, delegate, stuff like that. And I do that in many, many, many areas. So I guess, it is God's fault that I don't cook, because he's given me so many challenges in one body that trying to do it kind of sort of don't work. So I stick to what I say. Les, please cook for me and mail it to me. You can send it on snail mail. I don't care. With that, I'm giving up my mic.
Thank you for that share. And I would like to hear what Brock has to say.
I don't really have much to say. I mean, last couple days, you guys have been trying to touch on accountability and integrity, and I've never heard one thing towards the topic. So this is day 2, and it's the same boat as it was, I think it was yesterday.
Okay, so but you can share about the topic. What are your thoughts about it?
Well, I don't think most people take, they don't take responsibility for their actions, nor are they accountable. I was working in collections for some time, calling out to people that owed debts. And you'd say, hey, we got to make a payment. One of the biggest responses that you heard from most of the calls was, well, only God can judge me. You know, so it says a lot. That's why, Coach, we had a room, SUJATA and I, late at night a couple days ago, and it was surviving accountability. And a lot of people thought it was like an oxymoron or something like that, and it wasn't. What I meant by surviving accountability is accountability comes from the ability to feel pain. You know, that's what courage is getting through the pain of the mind. And so surviving accountability means when you do it the first time, you feel it drastically. But if you do it more and more and more, as you become more and more accountable, it's not as painful as the first observation of that existence. But I think that our society, 98%, I don't know what the number would be, they're not accountable. And I also think that they lack courage. It's just what I've observed. I don't know. We'll see what anybody else has to say.
You see, I told you had to share, and it's right because for the last 2 days I've been saying that you have to be accountable for your actions. It nobody tells. I'll give you. I won't mention who they are, but I'll give you examples. So, guy, he's a chain smoker, but otherwise very very healthy. Has his first and last heart attack, and leaves back a widow with children to manage. He died of a heart attack. Medically, the reason was that he was a chain smoker. And the other thing which the world did not know was that at his job place, he was being, you know, made to take decisions which were not ethical or which lacked integrity. And he was resisting that. And being in a government job, he was resisting it, which gave a lot of stress. Now, put that stress and put that habit of his, he died at age 41. So, are you going to blame it on higher power, your faith, or are you going to blame it on the environment, the situation that he was in? So there are things like that. I can count so many of them where we are not always in control of what happens or is thrown at us, but we can choose our responses to it. So if you're stressed, do you go for the sweet treat, which I will make your sugars go up, or you decide to eat something healthy and stop your craving, or to do a quick fix on your stress, which is at the moment your mood or your mental status. That is a choice that we always have. So no shortcuts. It is hard. You have to deal with the pain, and you deal with the pain as best as you can. That's my share.
Thank you so much, Sujata. And one of the things that, since accountability and integrity is the thing that we are pressing into this conversation, I think one of the things that I see is when people go to church, and this is my experience growing up as a kid and why I didn't like organized religion. I would see my neighbors in a particular neighborhood when I first moved to the United States. They would get up, pack up in the car, go to church, dress up in their fancy clothes, come home, get undressed from their fancy clothes, come out into the yard and do crazy things. Like suddenly I see my dad going outside to the driveway, and here's my neighbor with an axe chopping down our fence because he suddenly remembered that easement was his and the fence was on his property and he didn't want the fence anymore. And I remember my dad saying, "Wait a minute, didn't you just come back from church?" And he said, "Yes, what does that have to do with anything?" And he said, "Well, I don't see any love written on the handle of that axe or what you're doing. And you could have walked across and walked another 40 feet to the entryway to the garage where I was working. And you could have said, 'Hey, Mr. Hill,' and you even know my first name, you could have said Jock and had a conversation with me. Instead, you're somehow upset about something and you come and take it out on the fence, which is on my yard and on my property, as far as I know it." And then the discussion around the table was the crazy religious people across the street are going nuts. They come back from church, and what are they feeding those people in church that has no accountability for their actions, no integrity? And so that's how I was introduced to quote unquote American good Christians. And it then took me several years of going through Pilgrim Fellowship, going through a youth group on a Wednesday night, going skiing, learning, getting to know that about humanity being very different, and people, no matter what they go and what they're taught in church, doesn't necessarily mean that they come home and they follow the morals and laws and accountability that the church says they should follow, and that a lot of them do it for show, and a lot of them give money for show. And so, you know, when Sujata and I have these conversations over and over again, and we share about things that happen during our life and during our days, where it's like, how does this person claim to themselves that they are faith-filled, and yet they are doing X, Y, and Z? Oh, well, they're a human being. Yes, I get that. And where's the accountability and integrity for what they say and who they say they are? Now, do human beings make mistakes? Of course they do. Do I make mistakes? Every single day. Do I do my best to find out how those mistakes impacted people and clean it up? That's my mission. That's the game I play. That's the integrity that I've learned to live with, and the accountability. The more I learn, as I started out today, the more I learn about Christianity, the more I learn I don't know. The more I learn about all the faiths, the more I learn I don't know. And the demonstration that I am. And all I know that is my goal every day is to lead an exemplary life to the best of my ability and honor my word, and have my actions be consistent with my word, so that when you see me, I'm not just a talking head that's blowing smoke out of my mouth in the form of words that have no correlation to the communication that's being portrayed 85 to 95% non-verbally, which is how a lot of people go through life. So when we came up with this question tonight and over the past 2 days, for me, listening over the last 2 days has been an interesting exercise, because as Brock just shared, after only having been here 2 days, he doesn't hear the conversation of accountability or integrity, or people sharing the breakthroughs that they've had or the breakdowns that they see around them and what they're up to in transforming those areas. That's the mission. That's the game that I believe Sujata and I are up to in this podcast, is transforming the conversation so that when people come in here, they go, wow, I never looked at it that way. And gosh, when I looked in the mirror after listening to Sujata, I'm kind of a fraud. And perhaps I can walk out of here tomorrow morning being a walking, living demonstration of what I believe, as opposed to a fraud. So I heated up the conversation a little bit. Sujata's laughing. And I'm going to pass the mic over to Sattva. Nicholas, go for it.
Yeah, I'll pick up the mic.
Thank you.
Hey, everyone. Yes, thanks. So most people wonder why the name Sattva, why the name Sat. Why do I choose this name? I choose this name because it's numerologically significant. Anybody who knows about numerology, we all have a vibration, and our name has a vibration, and it deduces to what's called a digital root. We take every number and we add it up and we get a digital root. And there's a nuance in all of that. So I'll leave that right there. That's the explanation behind the name Sattva, because it pulls in the energy that is in resonance with my life. And everyone has this resonance. And so what I'm getting at here is I'm a perennial philosophist. I was born into the Azusa Street Revival, the 1906 Azusa Street Revival tradition, which is the Assemblies of God. And most people call this the crunk Christians. Okay? Anybody who knows about being spirit-filled, they know this. There's what they call a dispensation, or an outpouring of the Holy Spirit. And one can take that as WHOLLY, holy, a united spirit, or the Holy Spirit as an HOLY, which then has a nuance to it, according to the Christian faith. And as I progressed, I moved from Christianity to Orthodox Christianity, which is the nature of the cross. That little portion on the bottom, most people look at it and I had the same question. What does that mean? And it means that there was one person on the side of Christ, Yeshua, Mashiach Adonai, or Jesus, who went to heaven. He says, well, you'll see me in heaven. You'll see me in eternity. And the other one goes to hell. And that's the reason for that angle on that cross. It's a signification that not everyone will ascend. Not everybody will ascend. And I say that to give credence to what I received when I was a child. I was at Spencer Lake Bible Camp, and I was under Chuck Wasik. I remember, I'm going to talk about the spirit language here a little bit. What it means to be filled with the Spirit. It was a mystical experience, and it was nuanced, and I didn't understand it quite all the way. However, I let it wash over me, and this language developed over time. So then I came into my own. I said, well, let me just find out what this all is about. And then I began to study the Bhagavad Gita. I studied a couple other texts, the Tao Te Ching. I didn't study it extensively. I did read it. What I'm getting at here is this expression that we share, which is the perennial philosophy. We have this human expression that we share together collectively and individually. And so within anyone's purview at any given time, there's going to be a stipulation placed upon how one sees something. It's going to be tainted. So in this respect, perception is reality. And what people see, they're not really seeing. They're not actually seeing what they perceive that they're seeing. It's an illusion most of the time, because most people live in an illusion. And they're dealing with the projections of other people who are living deeply in an illusion. And there's this thing, it's called an egregor. It's E-G, egregor. E-G-R-E-G-O-R, egregor. And one can consider it as the thing king, a thing king. And it takes form when people believe in one thought collectively. It takes on form. It takes on a sort of a volition of its own. It's an energetic thought form that many people can agree upon and charge it up. And then this thing sort of like has its own volition. Why am I saying this? Well, this is the whole reason why gossip works so effectively against people. If people get enough people, just if one person gets enough people to believe in, say, a rumor, and enough people believe in this, well, then it holds a charge. And this charge, then, it actually has a volition, so to speak. It moves based upon the energy collectively of the people who believe in it, or those that are just pushing that narrative on that person through this egregor. Why is that significant? It's significant because we're dealing with egregors all over the place. I believe the statistic as far as Christianity is concerned, I believe there's over 28,000 different variants of Christianity, which is then polytheism, that many gods, similar to Hinduism. There would be many gods. So if you don't like this Jesus, you can go to that Jesus. And then we have the evidence of this through the various books that are written, the ESV, the NLT, whatever the dogmatic agenda is for the specific tradition or the specific version of Christianity. This is where those come from. Okay, so we have to contend with that. So as I see it, as I see Christianity for myself, as I see Jesus, I'm betwixt, to be completely honest. I don't know if Jesus is an actually real man, but I do believe, I won't use that word, but I don't know if Jesus is a real man, and I believe in the Christ consciousness. I've seen the Christ consciousness have a direct impact in my life. It's unmistakable. I have this power to speak, as they say, in tongues. And when I do, it changes things around me. They say when there's no other way to pray in the Spirit. And this was what was taught to me as a child. And the joy that comes from it when we're in our darkest hours, when I use this language, and I've used it sparingly, there was a lot of times I wouldn't speak it at all because it was like, it's so powerful. It's like, I don't want to say this because I'm not sure what's going to happen. So it's like I'm like, no, whatever this is, just going to go through it because I don't want to speak something into existence and then have it come off worse, so to speak. And that's happened to me. That's actually happened. I'll give you an example. When I was speaking in tongues at a very tumultuous point in my life, which was with ex, I was speaking in tongues. I didn't have any answers. And I remember speaking in tongues. She was over in Texas, and I was moving freight systems across in the Northwest. And I was speaking in tongues, and I was just asking for breakthrough. And then I'm out here talking on people, and excuse that. Yeah. So anyway, I'm trying to get into it so I can pass this mic over. So I spoke in his tongues, and the relationship went from bad to worse, and it was very physically abusive. I endured a lot in that relationship that I didn't deserve, but I allowed it. So I let myself be treated the way that I chose. And so I don't blame her or anything for it. That's not what this is about. What I'm saying is when I use this language, it didn't work in my favor at that point in time. It actually worked against me. So there's this nuance in there, and it's really an important nuance. To me, it says it's the part in the Bible that says, "Do not cast your pearls before swine, lest they turn and rend you asunder." And swine would be anything that's unclean. Anyone who would not have, say, a perspective that they can appreciate, perhaps say the spirit or speaking in tongues, which that's nuanced. I mean, that's not going to fit everyone. That's not going to work for everyone. So I'll say this: I'm a perennial philosophist. My roots are in Christianity. I will forever and always believe in the Bible because it's what I studied most of my adult life, and it makes sense to me. Like, the Bible isn't just a book; it's many books, as most people are aware. And so then we deal with this thing called God, or Wod, or Wooden, and it's the God's like king. If we look at the word God, if you just go do a quick Google search, the Oxford Dictionary tells you that it's from Germanic. The word is synonymous with God, which is the Gothic God. And this is synonymous with Odin, the king of the wild hunt. And so when I think of God, I don't think of God as the king of the wild hunt. I think of God as the king of the wild hunt with that specific frequency. However, the acronym God, G period, O period, D period, which is generator, organizer, and destroyer. That's the energy that we all have, the Brahma, the Vishnu, and the Shiva. The generator, the organizer, and the destroying forces. This is what holds everything together as it is. That's my reality. That's how I see it. And so when I say God, I'm actually inferring the acronym. Now, if I say God and I'm not, trust I will explain myself. And I will say, well, there is this other side of it. There is this other dimensional being that exists called God, or Odin, as it's been spoken of mythologically. So in that respect, I hope I can give a little clarity to people who, because I post the room 24-hour Bible study, because I know Coach Lutz's heart. He's inclusive, and he wants there to be an open dialogue, interfaith dialogue. And that to me is beautiful, and I can support that 100%. With that, I'll yield my mic and pass it over to you, Coach Lutz.
Thank you so much, Satva. And I want to defend Nicholas for a moment here, in the space of, if we look at what the question was today, and I'm going to ask you, Nicholas, to see if I'm tracking with what you shared. In the space of the question today, we look at what is it that people who are following Christian faith or any specific faith, why do they always put responsibility on God's and accountability on God's shoulders? And at what point do we take accountability of our own actions? What I saw and what I heard in what Nicholas was sharing was he was creating, this is the accountability world that he's expanded his worldview from. And he's explained, and he just finished explaining to us why he's chosen the path that he's chosen to be accountable from, and as a source of the actions that he takes consistent with his belief. Is that accurate? Oh, look at that. I got a thumbs up. Woohoo!
Yeah, that's accurate, Coach Les, and I'd like to dive a little deeper into that, and I'll keep it brief here. The path, so to speak, is nuanced. It's like chemistry. The ways of chemistry are many, but they're finite. And so there are many ways to enlightenment, or however one would seek to express the state of being, the state of peace, the state of bliss, the state of orgasmic flow, if you will, just this loving space. And so God, everything gets put on God because people don't want to take responsibility. I know that was my story. Oh, I'm such a victim. Oh, poor me. And then somebody told me, like, dude, man up, man. You let people treat you certain types of ways. You have to put your boundaries in place, and you have to use the power that God has given you, and then enforce those boundaries. No matter what, you matter just as much as everyone else matters. And you can't, in the words of David Goggins, feel all poopy pants about life when things come and happen, because what we allow is what we allow. And then it manifests in our life. And then we're always like, oh, why? Well, because we allowed it. And then it's like, oh, okay, so there's this dynamic going on of victimization to, victory. If I take full responsibility for everything, and I mean everything, I take my power. That's when I step into my full power. And that's when I begin to affect a change that I want to see, not the one that's being suggested. And this is nuanced because we're in a balancing act. It's not just me. There's me, and then there's everything else, everyone else, every being. All of the spirit elementals and all of the nobles and the noble metals and all the kingdoms and the queendoms that exist. It's like, well, now we're contending with real spirituality. Spirituality is the study of spirits, and there's many spirits. And so in that respect, God is getting a bad rap because people, they don't want to take, or they don't know how to take, rather they're not fully cognizant of how to take full responsibility and bypass that feeling of helplessness.
Well,
because that's taught.
So I'm going to jump in here, Nicholas, because you're hitting on something that is at the core of our conversation. And what Sujata and I believe, if I may speak for Sujata, and she can confirm this, government is trying to take away some of that responsibility. And they are trying to put controls in. When
Amen.
when Sujata tells me of some of the controls that they have in Singapore, I don't care how much money I have, the chances of me living in Singapore are negative 100%. due to the fact that I look and see how much the government wants to control everything, to the point of tracking you when the pandemic was going on by your cell phones. And I look at that and
Coach Les.
Yep.
If anybody agrees to use an app on your phone, I don't care what app it is, make sure that you read your end user license agreement. Because if you sign up for an app, you're automatically just giving a lot. Like, there's a bunch of clauses in there. At any given moment, you can share your information for arbitrary reasons, basically.
Definitely.
So it's like, just forget about privacy for a moment. Not to be rude or anything. I just wanted to say, like, there's this thing called the Five Eyes, and there's I think it's Australia, the United Kingdoms, the United States. The other two, they elude me. Just Google the Five Eyes surveillance compact or something like that, and it'll pull up the 5 governments in the world that have made an agreement to, basically, go into people's phones at any given moment if they need to, if there's a crisis or something, or if they're trying to find somebody or something like this, right?
It's Australia. It's Australia, Canada.
This is what they say.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello. There is somebody here who has panic attacks, and I would really like to be able to stay in the room.
Okay, Tiffany, I'll honor that. Okay, let me slow the pace down.
So here's what I want to do is I want to guide the conversation back, Nicholas, because we could do a
back to you.
No. We could do a deep dive on this particular, right?
Yeah.
So let's just not right now.
There's
let's go into the God thing. Why do people, put blame on God? Well, it's like the Sky Daddy concept. It's like, well, one day, one fine morning, when this life is over, I'll fly away. Oh, I'll fly away. Oh, glory. Yeah, right? And that's like put into us. And then it's like this subconscious program where it's like, okay, one day it's all going to be okay. And that's not true. it's not going to be okay unless we do something. That's why we're given 2 feet. That's why we're given 2 hands. That's why we have the consciousness that we have and the power to create as we see. And that's an art. And that is the space. That space of creativity, bliss, that's the space that we create. And it's mistaken for, just be positive, That's true. However, there's this thing called toxic positivity where it's like we're not dealing with the pain aspects of life, where it's like, I don't want to feel pain. And that's when God becomes the scapegoat, so to speak, in my opinion.
Can I jump in about the responsibility issue that Coach mentioned earlier?
Definitely.
Over to you, Tiffany.
Go ahead.
Thank you. When you said something about responsibilities being taken away from us, oh boy, do I know that.
I didn't say responsibility.
No, I said it. I said it.
Saying,
I said it, Nick.
Please go ahead, Coach Les.
I said it, Nicholas. I said it.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Tiffany.
I am afraid to wear seatbelts because I have been in 3 accidents, and the one I was a pedestrian in, I was hurt the least. The one I was wearing the shoulder strap and the lap belt in, I was hurt the worst. The one where I was wearing only a lap belt, I was hurt moderately. Now think about that. I'm a pedestrian crossing a street. I get hit by I get rolled over by the back wheel of a flatbed trailer that has nothing on it. I fracture my arm, the one I can't use, by the way. I had more use back then. And my foot's black and blue for about 6 months, etc., etc. I haven't had pain in my arm until just recently from that accident. I don't know if it's because of the accident, but I don't use this arm very much because I can't use it from my elbow to my fingers. So, but then I say, well, let me be responsible for my actions if we get into a car wreck and I'm injured. Oh no, we can't do that, insurance, and it's the law, and it's blah, 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 blah. You just took my choice away. I can't be responsible for my choice. That infuriates me. And with that, I'm laying my mic down.
All right. I'm going to pass the mic to Brother Jeremy to bring us back on track around the whole accountability for our own actions and God's shoulders.
This is a riveting conversation. My goodness. And, when you mentioned the question about why is it that people who are following the Christian faith always put responsibility and accountability on God's shoulders? And I think one of the reasons is there's a part in Scripture